This is West Coast Sasquatch Research. Hi folks, this is Sasquatch 101, part 2 in this 3-part series. This one is about research and researching. Greetings, I'm your host, Jerry Matthews, and in this episode I'm going to be talking about Sasquatch research. You may recall that in episode 1 I spoke about the characteristics of Sasquatch. Well, seeing that you're now here, I assume that you would probably like to hear more evidence about the creature's existence. Well then, as luck would have it, this is where you come in. As a researcher, it's going to be up to you to collect evidence and to assess the evidence of others. And if I could tell you only one thing, it would be that evidence is not proof. Not in a court of law and not in Sasquatch research. You see, evidence can be manipulated to support any line of thought or belief. And so evidence should not be offered as proof. Proof is a smoking gun, and so far we haven't even seen the gun. We're just picking up spent cartridges that we find lying around on the trail. It will be up to you, the researcher, to set the height of your own evidence bar as to what is believable evidence and what is not. Remember from part 1 of the podcast, you must stand for something or you'll fall for anything. Right now, it may also be helpful for you to set up the infrastructure of your research by asking yourself a few questions about your motivations. Firstly, why do you want to research Sasquatch? A, is this for your own enjoyment, just to get out in the woods? Invigorating, smell that mountain air. Or B, this is for the social aspect of finding others and uniting in a common cause type of thing. Or C, are you looking for an explanation for something that happened to you in the past? That's a good one. D, you want your 15 minutes of fame by nailing this mystery. Or E, you would love to prove it real or debunk its existence either way, just for your own satisfaction. Well, let's deal with the first one. It is a hobby and it gets me out in the woods. That's a good answer. With that attitude, you'll never be disappointed by your research, because it'll take you to places that you otherwise might never have gone, and there will be people along the way that you never would have met. If this is your outlook, then I would encourage you to investigate the subject of Sasquatch and go out and enjoy our beautiful countryside. Now, second one was, I want to do it for the social aspects. While there's nothing wrong with this reasoning, it does have some pitfalls. I mean, you can meet a lot of great people out on the trail. You may even make lifetime friends. You may also make lifetime detractors. It'll depend on the height of that evidence bar that I spoke about and how well you wish to adhere to it. You can make friends or lose friends depending on those standards. And honestly, you'll definitely have to grow a thick skin, whatever your reason for studying Sasquatch. Another reason was that you were looking for evidence which would explain something that happened to you. This is probably one of the best reasons of all. Your inquisitiveness will speak well for you, especially in your interaction with other researchers. And it will give you a legitimacy, too, when you share your story about what happened to you. So let's talk about people who just want to get their 15 minutes of fame. Sadly, there are a number of those kind of researchers. In the long run, they gain little respect from their peers at large, and they're easy to spot. Motivation can be a big deal for sure with being a researcher. You will notice that Bigfoot documentaries are not as informative as they used to be. Now they are just platforms which are more about the researcher than the creature. Soon as the night vision and thermal units come out, I switch channels, but that's just me. Who am I to say how someone should spend their precious time they will never get back? The fifth one was that the jury is still out on whether Sasquatch even exists. I mean, if you found out tomorrow that it was all proven to be a big joke, you would probably not spend much time lamenting it. On to Loch Ness kind of thing. This would show me and others that you have a hefty balance of skepticism, which is absolutely necessary in this field. You are willing to follow the evidence wherever it leads, and you will not color it to suit your own beliefs. Do not let your presumptions become assumptions, I remember John Green saying. And remember, stand for something or fall for anything. So how to begin research? Go read a book on Sasquatch. Well, duh. No, I'm serious. Do not seek evidence online or in chat forums. At this point, avoid the echo chamber of social media. Instead, take yourself and your book, or Kindle to a quiet place with few distractions and absorb what you're reading. With a book as your source, you'll be able to ignore a lot of the noise that you'd get from social media, including podcasts. Well, I hope we don't have to go that far. When you've read your book, get another one and look for the older TV documentaries on Amazon Prime or even Netflix. Those were the days before night vision and thermal cams, or Howling in the Woods by eye-glowing tree knockers. As your friendly neighborhood researcher, do not take for granted everything you see and hear. Use your skeptic senses, and if they've been properly prepared, they will never steer you wrong. Once you believe that you have achieved a degree of understanding about Sasquatch, then it's time to put this knowledge to use. You can decide either to do your research alone or by contacting and becoming a member of a local research club. Now, being a research club member can be invaluable. It'll give you the possibility to do field work with others, and it's a great place for networking with others as well. Best part? You can still do investigations on your own, even though you're a club member, so you get the best of both worlds. You can connect with a local club in your region just by doing a simple Google search. So next, where will you go to find Sasquatch? There are a lot of people running around the countryside. They just meander from place to place, whichever way the wind blows, just hoping to get lucky. Then there are others who will scope out a spot by some river or on some mountain and study every aspect of the area until they know what belongs and what doesn't. It's been said, and I quote, paraphrase really, it is a fool's errand to go walking around the countryside hoping to trip across a Sasquatch. Now, I just paraphrased a guy who spent most of his life doing just that, with no results. Those were the words of the researcher's patron saint, René de Hinden. So there are those who think that scouting out a certain area and sticking to that area will produce results. You only need to keep rolling the dice with each visit until you come across that one well-defined footprint. At that point, you realize that you've been given a great gift. You know where there is one, right in your area. So why would you want to leave? I think that this is a great idea, especially for the solo guy or gal who just want to prove the creature's existence to themselves. These are the silent researchers. They do not have a website. They do not post on forums. But if they did, the believers would attack them for not sharing their findings. This is true. They will. So they fly under the radar of the Bigfoot Sasquatch community. Anyway, now that you've decided on your chosen research method, it's time to gather the tools to assist you. The tools of the trade, if you will. Whenever you have an opportunity to go out into the woods, some valuable items to carry along with you would be, number one, a GPS. When going into an unknown area, you can begin to track leaving a breadcrumb trail on the device back to your starting point. Under those circumstances, it would be pretty hard to get lost. Second, a knife. This device will have many uses, foreseen and unforeseen, which we won't get into here. Number 3, recording device or a cell phone. Back in the day, we always carried a small tape recorder. I still have my cassette recorder. I have never gone into the woods without it. These days, you can just download a recorder program for your phone. I got a very sensitive one that I put on my cell phone, and it works just great. And number 4, camera. Once again, you have an excellent camera on your cell phone. Although there are some who still use film in their cameras and their trail cams, that's because if they get an interesting picture, they will not have to worry about claims that it was photoshopped in some way. Number 5 is a small measuring tape. Now, these are the basics which you can carry at all times. Taking a picture of an object requires at times a comparison in size to understand what you're truly looking at. So, a little measuring tape is perfect for displaying the actual size of an object. Books on the subject. There are a number of fine books out there in the marketplace. However, they're the exception rather than the rule. The same with regard to TV shows, blogs, podcasts, and forums. If you'd like a list of books well worth reading, then send me an email and I'll send you a list. Also, a list of worthwhile research documentaries to watch. They will all be informative media resources. Now let's talk about media sources for a while. Can you tell me, what do all those media sources have in common? First and foremost, media sources depend on the experiences and beliefs of others for their content. And usually this content comes in 4 different forms. 1. Anecdotal evidence. 2. Unknown audio. 3. Unknown visuals. 4. If the claim of a Sasquatch encounter cannot put the creature at the scene of the crime with the use of supportive evidence, then this report is what is called anecdotal. He said, she said. Just someone telling a story about an encounter with only their word as evidence. Well, what about unknown radio? There are a plethora of sound bites out there where the submitter claims that these recordings are Bigfoot vocalizations. Now, a skeptical researcher would have to put them forth as just unknown sounds, unless additional evidence supported the claim. But these sounds are usually not accompanied by claims of further evidence. Therefore, without any additional support of a convincing nature, we just have a mildly interesting sound made by an unknown creature. However, this enriches your research goals not in the slightest, so be picky about what you will accept. Now, unknown visuals. These are very common reports. These are folks who are not sure of what they saw. People who snapped a blurred or out-of-focus picture, claiming it to be evidence. Back in the day, we used to call them blob squatches. And here's an example. Say someone is showing you a picture of a supposed Sasquatch hiding behind a tree, or vague outlines of a footprint in the earth, but you could not make out the researcher's claims. So at one point, the researcher had to resort to outlining the subjects in red for you to finally see what they were talking about. By rights, that researcher's evidence should have already lost your interest before the outline. Remember what I said about the height of your bar when it comes to processing evidence. Belief in blob squatches is a pretty low bar, no matter how sincere the photographer or the researcher might have been in showing them. And then we come to multiple sightings. These are people that you may see on those horrid TV productions who claim to have unlimited access to a Sasquatch or a Sasquatch group. They've had many encounters of all types, but not once have they even been able to take a picture or video of these creatures. And there's usually a far-fetched answer as to why this is. I remember the last show that I partially watched on Amazon Prime had researchers who claimed that they virtually lived with a family of Sasquatch, but there were no pictures of the creatures that these guys virtually lived with because these Sasquatch did not like things pointed at them. So cameras were out of the question. The same with their trail cams, which did not take a single picture because the Sasquatch avoided the cameras because of the human scent on the cameras. So the scent of the men caused the Sasquatch to stay away from their cameras, yet the Sasquatch had no problem hanging out with the men themselves. Okay, yeah, right. So let me say that people are free to believe what they want. Godspeed. I'm just trying to place you, the listener, on the right path to begin your research. What becomes of it in the end will be up to you. In part 3, let's get in touch with the Bigfoot community and look at some hollowed pieces of evidence so prevalent these days. You, the listener, can make up your own mind of the quality of the evidence presented. So no matter what the media throws at you, you got to keep the faith, babe. Just keep the faith and keep your evidence bar high. And your skeptic senses will do you good. Anyway, that's it for part 2 of the 3-part series. Part 3, of course, will continue in the next podcast, where we will talk about other so-called evidence and everybody's favorite, the Bigfoot community. Okay, dear listener, that about wraps it up for now. My name is Jerry Matthews. You can reach me at yellowcoyote@talus.net. Thank you for your interest, and until the next time, keep searching.